All right, so an official hello to everybody out there. My name is Belicia Carter, and I want to welcome you to Going Paperless. I know you guys have been really patient and heard quite a few stories, but before I begin, I still have just a couple of announcements. The first actually being a reminder about the reception in your honor tonight at 5 p.m. Please come down and join us, and make sure you're on time so that you get a good seat for the presidential address beginning at 5:30 p.m. You don't want to miss out on the big announcement, okay? The other thing I want to talk about with you are the documents as well as questions and answers. So we try our very best to jam-pack every 90-minute session with enough information to kind of cover all the bases. However, it leaves us little time in each session for question and answer blocks at the end of the period. And so to make sure that we're able to address all of your questions, we've placed a question and answer feature inside of our exclusive ChildPlus Scramble app, So please, please, please submit all of your questions. Every Scramble registrant will receive all of the questions and answers submitted via email within 2 weeks of the close of the conference, okay? For those of you streaming at home, we didn't forget about you. Scramble questions can be submitted to the email training@childplus.com. Please make sure to place in the subject line Going Paperless so that we make sure that your emails get directed to the right person, okay? The other thing is, normally at our Scramble conferences, we provide you guys with a lot of packets, but how can I do that in a Going Paperless session? And so we don't have any paper in here, but if you want a copy of everything that we talk about today, it's already on your jump drive issued to you upon check-in. In addition to that, you have note pages in the back of your program to help you take down any good notes, and then of course you can always submit questions if you have to later, okay? All right, so who am I and what are we going to talk about? So again, my name is Belicia Carter, and I am one of the many team members that make up the training and consulting department here at ChildPlus. I am also a former Head Start employee. I worked for 10 years at a Head Start agency in Atlanta, and like many Head Start employees, I worked many different positions and wore many different hats. The position that I held the longest was as data coordinator for our program. And in that position, I'm not afraid to admit it, I fell in love with paper, okay? Paper was essential to my job because paper was what we used to collect information for data entry. Paper was what we used to create tracking forms and tickler systems for regular monitoring. And paper was what we stuffed our education and our child files with to be able to keep up with that record on a regular basis for stakeholders and federal monitorings, okay? And so I understand the attachment to paper, I understand the need for all of that paper, but I also know that you are ready to get rid of some of that paper. Is that true? Okay. I know that because you're already ChildPlus users. And being ChildPlus users, I know that you're fully aware that the system allows you to keep track of things like screenings, exams, notes, family goals, and even help you do a little bit of monitoring with reports and some other features, right? But for whatever reason, we tend to hear these little excuses that say, I can't let go of the paper, or I can't become fully electronic because there are still forms and there are still pieces of information that we collect from our families. And unfortunately, you don't have a place for that, ChildPlus, or you can't help me with that. Okay? But my goal today is to dispel all of that. I want to get rid of all of those reasons that we tend to use to hold on to paper by explaining to you all of the different features we have, both great and small, to help you collect and enter information electronically. We're also going to take a look at quite a few things we have in the system for you that assists with monitoring data, all from the luxury of your desk. We're going to also take a look at the features that you have in the system to help you collect data that you're currently tracking on outside pieces of paper because you believe that you can't keep up with that information in the system. Now, we will talk about all of these features, but we aren't going to go into detail about how to actually implement and set up every feature, but that's okay because we have sessions here that explain every single one of them. So if there's a feature that we talk about today and you want to know more information about it, scurry on over to that session and make sure you get all that data there, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get started. One of the first things we want to talk about is data collection, okay? And the biggest set of data I feel like that you collect is information about your families, right? All right, so we have 2 paperless options for entering family data into the system, and one of them is one I'm sure that everybody has used or at least know of currently, and that's your Add Family function. Meaning what you do is go up to the left sidebar and click your Add Family button, and then ChildPlus opens up for you your Add a New Family screen. That screen is a collection of fields from 6 different modules, all located in one place to help streamline your data entry process. Why am I talking to you about that now? Because you guys, you can actually do applications interview style, having your family sit there with you at your desk and enter that information directly into the system, right? And so for those of us that are fully aware of this screen, we know that ChildPlus allows us to enter in all of our family members, as well as some demographic information for them. But I'm going to stop right here for just a minute, because let's take a look at this section just under my application notes. I just mentioned to you that people often tell us we're tracking additional pieces of information. Like a lot of times I see on applications, what are your housing options? Does this family rent? Does this family buy? Does this family own? And so on. I know programs that want to be proactive and try to figure out their transportation routes, and you would like to collect information on incoming applicants based on their transportation needs. There are questions on our application that help us identify students that may need special diet requests, health concerns, medication, and so on. And you're tracking that information on separate pieces of paper so that you can have that ready upon acceptance and enrollment. You guys, I don't know if you know this, but there are over 200 fields just hiding in the background waiting for you to use them. So if you're keeping up with extra data on extra forms because you don't see those fields on your application, have your system administrator activate agency-specific fields. Agency-specific fields contains checkboxes, date fields, numeric fields, custom drop-down choices, note fields. We even have labels and allow you to decide the order in which the fields should appear. Those fields, once active, are going to appear here on your Add New Family screen as well as in the application module. And because it's a field with data, yes, you can actually print that information out on a report. Okay? So that is going to help me collect some of that extra information sitting on those forms, right? I love that we can customize our application. Just under those agency-specific fields, I have a button here that says Add Groups. All right, groups help us to identify subsets of participants. How many of you in the audience include within your intake process some type of questionnaire, health history, nutrition assessment that says, I need to identify children that may have concerns upon entering into the program, right? A few of us, okay? You can actually create participant groups based on those same labels. Place your family members in the group in the middle of your intake process so that once you have a selection and you've decided who's coming into the program, you can run reports and say how many of my accepted applicants actually are going to require a special diet form. So you can go ahead and send that information out. How many of my children in my program will require special permissions or allowances? How many are going to need medication on file? How many just want some, are just going to need some extra time for us, okay? And so I can do that by placing any of my family members in a group, and you may see here on the screen that those groups actually can be assigned a different color flag, basically making it a visual alert when I'm working inside of the child's record. Groups are really cool because I can print all of my group members anytime I need to know who they are, or just view them, no need to print. But I can also see them on the screen. I can filter my reports based on that group. There are a lot of options that help us stay on top of who we're bringing into the program, okay? Right next to my Add Groups is Add Photos, and I told you guys I'm going to even talk about the smallest feature. How is Add Photos going to help me to go paperless? Well, how many of us are still scanning copies of IDs so that we have a picture of the parent? How many of us are making copies of photos of our emergency contacts and keeping that in the file? Don't do that. Use the Add Photo feature to keep photographs of all of your adult family members, technically any family member, but especially my adult family members, as well as all of my emergency contacts. Not only are those photos just really cute to see when I'm working in a child's record, but they actually appear on the emergency contact report, report 1520, in case you didn't know that number, okay? And so that's going to be really helpful, and that helps me not to keep people's personal information on pictures available, just so that everybody can have that upon pickup and departure or drop off, okay? In addition to being able to enter in all of my family members, you guys already know that ChildPlus allows you to collect contact information such as addresses and phone numbers. And by the way, don't forget to collect those email addresses and cell phone numbers. We'll talk more about that later. I'll scroll right past this whole section dedicated to collecting income and verification documents, and that's going to lead me to my favorite section, the enrollment piece. And I think I mentioned to you guys earlier, I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes to this data, because I just told you that a piece of the software is a favorite part. Why is it favorite? Head Start Performance Standard 1302.12.1 Subpart 3 says that every program must create an eligibility determination record for all enrolled participants. Paragraph K in that same standard says that that record can be kept electronically. All the things that are listed in that standard, such as income verification, discussing whether or not you had an in-person versus a telephone eligibility interview, a big part of that information, or a lot of that information, is housed right here in this portion of the application. At the very beginning, we collect some basic information like the program for which the child is applying, whether or not releases were completed, and the date that they were signed. If I move down just a little bit further, ChildPlus will let me keep up with the application date and where we are today with that application, but just to the right of it is where I start with my eligibility information. I'm able to say the date we determine eligibility for this participant, as well as use or the information used to determine eligibility, such as number and family and eligibility income. Right underneath that, ChildPlus has every field we need to complete the eligibility verification form electronically, starting with, is this person eligible for the program? How the interview was conducted, and the type of documentation used to determine eligibility. You guys only have to enter your data in the system. You don't have to create a special form for that, okay? Underneath this, we have eligibility criteria points and then a notes field. I know notes fields kind of seem a little bit trivial, but I know a lot of people who tell me that they create their special form because they want staff to write down how they calculated the eligibility income. Use the note field already in ChildPlus for that. You can print that out and you can create your own report if you feel like you'd rather use one that's a little bit different from ours, okay? All right, so this application or intake screen also comes with a place for immunizations, so I can even start my intake process off by identifying the vaccines received by that child, as well as any exemptions or waivers received. Once done, I would normally go to the bottom and hit one of these 3 saved options, but because I didn't actually put data in, I'm going to cancel out of this screen and start talking to you about my next option for collecting my family information. Okay, now why aren't we having interview style intake sessions? Why aren't we taking the time to sit with our families right then and there, complete all of this information, and collect all of our documents? Probably because we don't always have that time, right? Who has 45 minutes or more, because I hear that that's about average for a lot of us. So who has 45 minutes or more to sit there and complete that entire process with everyone that shows up to the door that day? I didn't expect to see any hands, nobody, right? And so if you're not having free moments and periods where you can constantly sit at the computer and enter apps in all day, then what we usually do is print out a couple of paper applications and leave them somewhere accessible for the family. So that still means we're initially collecting that information on paper. I don't want you to do that. Instead, let's talk about using online applications. So I'm going to go to Setup, followed by Module Setup, and then click Online Application. Once I click on online application, I can see where you're going to send your system administrator to tell ChildPlus that you want to enable the ability to collect family information online through your company's website. They're going to be able to set up that page, and we even allow you to use your logo and some custom colors. And then the more important thing, they're going to be able to set up which programs can take advantage of that feature and what type of information you want to collect from all of your adult family members as well as all of the child family members. Once a family submits an online application, you guys can even customize an email to them that says, basically, we've received your information, someone will be in touch with you shortly, and here are the things we want you to bring with you when you come to the office, okay? I know some of us in the audience are thinking, Belicia, that's really cool, but we don't have a company's webpage, or we're a part of a greater organization and we don't have access to that company's webpage. You don't have to have a web page. You see this link right here on our screen? You guys can actually copy that link once you've set up what you want to collect and simply email that link out to your parents and have them complete the applications online. You get the exact same effect as having a web page. Someone yesterday gave a great suggestion and said that they have a Facebook page, which many of us do now, and they actually put that link on their company's Facebook page, okay? Any questions or comments about our methods for collecting family information electronically? Very good. So she said they turned their link into a QR code, and where's that QR code posted? Very smart, everywhere. They post that QR code everywhere so that people can actually scan that code. And for those of you not kind of familiar what happens when you scan a code, it usually takes you right to the link, right to the web page where you want to direct someone's attention. So that's really useful to make sure that they get to the right place and not maybe type in the wrong link, right? Yes, sir. Are there other languages? Spanish and English are the only two languages that we provide. And for your Spanish language applications, you guys have to remember to go through the system, and you can tell basically ChildPlus how to translate some of those different terms. For an example, instead of saying languages on the application, it'll say idiomas and so on, okay? But in the back side of the things, you can set that up, okay? Alrighty, you guys. So we talked about ways of collecting that information electronically. Let's go ahead and talk about something else. One other reason I hear in the streets is I can't use a completely electronic intake process because unfortunately, Head Start loves to collect signatures, all right? We want you to sign your life away on every single document that you looked at it, that you read it, that you saw it, that you passed it on to somebody and get them to sign that they received it, right? And so the application is no exception. We want to see some signatures from parents. We want to see signatures from staff. And a lot of times I'll have people tell me, I still have to print it out because I still have to go around and collect those signatures. But you don't. Because just a few years ago, we've introduced for you electronic signature capture. Now, I know a few of us in here know that we can actually print out paper applications using Report 2135. But if you want to be able to apply your signature to that document, you're going to have to go into the family's record, into the application module that you see on my screen, and then in the top right corner of that module, you're going to see a button that says Print Application. When I click on Print Application, ChildPlus brings me to basically a report setup page, but it's only a report for that family. On that report setup page, I'll need to tell the system what portion of the application I want to see, what language I want it to print in, what participant or what family member is actually applying for a slot into the program, and then more importantly, which participation record do we want to use. In the upper right corner of that screen, I'll press Preview so that I can see my report, which is essentially my application. And here I have a digital copy of that completed application. If I scroll through the pages of the application, I'm able to see all that information that we took in, as well as a line on my page. Now, where this line falls is going to just depend on the size of that family and the list of emergency contacts, okay? If I continue scrolling, and that was my parent signature line, by the way, and if I continue scrolling, I'm going to see another signature line for staff, and then my completed eligibility verification form. How do I get parents to sign their portion of the application and then staff to sign their portion of the application? Well, because right above these documents, I have two buttons. One says parent signature and one says staff signature. And ChildPlus already knows where each signature goes. We're going to use the staff signature to sign the eligibility verification form by clicking that button, and then I get a signature capture field. If you have a touch screen device, take a stylus, or I'm just going to take my finger and sign right on that screen, okay? If you do not have a touch screen device, it doesn't mean you can't use the feature. Use your mouse. And I know a lot of people tell me, no, that's not okay. I don't want to use my mouse. But I promise it's not that bad. Not to mention, the signature itself is actually going to be pretty small, so all of the little imperfections in it aren't really going to be as noticeable once it's shrunken down and placed on the document. No matter how you capture that signature, oops, I forgot one other feature, I'm sorry. If you don't have a touchscreen mouse in our device, in addition to using your mouse, you can purchase a Topaz Signature Pad. It does have to be that name brand, Topaz Signature Pad. And then you can hook that up to the computer that has ChildPlus on it and allow your parents and staff to sign using that device as well. Anytime you guys, we ever mention the need for an additional device, just know that we have recommended models listed for you on our website. So feel free to go there and you can see exactly what you need, okay? All right, now once I have my signature here, I'm going to click accept. And ChildPlus just gave me a confirmation that that form that I have behind this box is now going to not only have my data, but my signature. But instead of just seeing it on the screen, the software made an attachment for me. I didn't have to print out anything, have someone sign it, and then scan it back into the system. I signed it in my device, and the system went ahead and made an attachment for me, starting or continuing my eligibility determination record, okay? You want to see that attachment, don't you? All right, so let's click View Attachment, and the system is taking me out of the report, opening up my application module specifically to the Attachments tab, and then within that Attachments tab, I already had one document. The one that I just signed today has today's date on it. I'm going to click on it and press View so that we can see that attachment, and here's the completed form because I entered all of my data through that intake screen, and then as I scroll to the bottom, there's my signature, okay? Right here in that child's record, and it's going to do the same for me for the pages that collect the parent signature as well, okay? I did get a very good question in a previous session where someone said, but what if I have, 50 applications? Do I have to sign each and every one? Yes. And I know that may seem like a drag, but that is for your safety. We do not want the system to just store signatures that could be misused and misrepresented on other forms. So we would prefer people sign each time as if it's a real paper document, individual for that child. Okay? Yes? Does it also sign the other staff? I'm so glad you asked that question. So the question you guys, I'm going to repeat it for you by going back to the print application screen. Actually, let me just click on this report. So I know I can collect my parent signature here. The question that I got just now said, what about this page right here, Belicia? So ChildPlus has on it the program, it has on it my eligibility points, and there's a line that says verifying staff. We actually feel like everything that's here, you're verifying and documenting on that eligibility determination page or verification page. So your staff signature only goes to one location and it goes to the page that I just showed you. But because it did not go here, a lot of people said to me, but now you're leaving me a blank line and it appears as if I didn't have staff members verify this application. The update that you all just received within the last couple of weeks took care of that for you. Go into your system preferences and you can tell ChildPlus, we're going to put our staff signature on the eligibility verification form. We do not need this verifying staff signature, so we're going to go ahead and remove that from the application. This was just needed for those programs that wanted to continue to print this paper out and use their own eligibility verification form. Okay? But as it stands on this application, let me scroll back up for you. I have a spot on the application that told me here who verified. So in case you feel like, well, I'm missing out on something, you're not, because you may not have noticed we've already started collecting that verifying person's name. It just prints right here in this gray section right next to where we display the income. So you have 2 different verifying signatures without having to print out and sign anything. Does that help? Okay. All right. Oh, yes, ma'am, I have a question.
So 2 different staff can sign?
Yes, so yes and no. My question says 2 different staff can sign. We can collect names from 2 different staff, yes. So inside of my application screen, there is a place for me to document who verified this income. The name of that individual is going to appear here on this form, and the name of that person is also going to appear at the bottom of my eligibility verification form completed through the software. The system will also recognize the person that's logged in and entering the information, and it will show you on these forms who entered this information as well, okay? And then you can have a different person, if you want, sign off on the eligibility verification form, okay? Right, so for those agencies that have that 2-tiered process where one person is verifying that I entered this information, keep in mind, and just because I have to run and remember where it is. Any other time I can go right there, but here you go. That information will still be there, and notice it says that this application was completed by on a specific date, and it even has the time. And I think that's pretty secure because it doesn't look at what you type in, it looks at who signed in, and it puts that person's name for you on the application. And then you can have that top layer of authority or security go in and sign your eligibility verification document to say that they did a second level of monitoring and they reviewed that everything is true and accurate as well. Okay? I have one more question in the back. All right, I couldn't hear the name of the form, but just tell me if I'm off. I heard that you have parents sign a special form that you use at your agency, and how can we handle that? Stay tuned. We're going to talk about how we handle that at the end of the session, okay? Meaning it's going to happen during the session, but it's the last thing because I feel like it's the best, so I'm saving the best for last, okay? All righty. So we've talked about collecting application information. Unless I have another question, let's move on to my next topic. All right, attachments. I just showed you that ChildPlus will automatically create an attachment of my signed application, but what about other attachments? What happens during that intake process? Well, we usually collect things like copies of immunization records, copies of physicals and dentals. We're collecting copies of IDs, I just said that. We're collecting birth certificates and so on. I don't want you to have to hold on to a file, even if it's a thin manila envelope, just to keep track of those copies. Instead, you guys, let's fully utilize our attachments feature and attach those documents to the appropriate area in the system. There is an attachment section in every one of these service areas here. In addition to being an attachment or having attachment options for this entire row, we even have attachment areas listed for you or available within the Management tab through Personnel, Professional Development, Community Resources, In-Kind, Internal Monitoring, and Class. Okay, so you can attach to your heart's content in the software, but let me talk to you just a little bit about attachments. To do that, I'm going back to the attachment area that we viewed earlier for this child, and I'm just going to tell ChildPlus that I'd like to edit details. And that takes me back to the screen that you're used to seeing when you first add an attachment. You get to tell ChildPlus where you want to attach the document, and there are two options basically. Do I want to attach it to one of my many different participant service areas, or do I want to attach it to a family area? But you can pick here, and then notice I can even see the different other areas even though I opened this up in my application area. The next thing you're going to do is to decide if you want to or how you want to identify this type of document using our box labeled attachment type. All right, now ChildPlus has started you off with a nice list of attachment types, but for whatever reason, I still see a lot of you out there using other, okay? If you can customize it, don't resort to using other. And even if you don't use other, I still see a lot of people leaving that box blank because they don't see what they want. You can customize that field, okay? And out of all the areas in ChildPlus, this is one area where I want you to customize the heck out of it. Every type of document you plan on attaching, create that attachment type. Why am I saying that? Well, the whole goal of actually having this information in here is so that you can monitor required documentation in your files. And I don't want to have to open up every single attachment just to actually see if I have the birth certificate, to see if I have a new physical. And instead, I would love to be able to see by name the type of document you attached, and report 2132, my participant attachments report, will allow me to filter by the type of attachment. So is that going to be very useful if I leave it blank or if I label everything as other? Not at all. So to ensure that you're getting the most out of the attachments and that you're able to use attachments as a monitoring system, make sure that you have the attachment types that you need, okay? Alrighty, any questions or comments for me about that? Yes, ma'am. Report 2132 is your participant attachments report, but in your reports tab, there's an entire category dedicated to attachments report. So every area that allows you to attach a document is going to be listed there, okay? All right. So that's one of the ways, I hope you guys heard me slide that in there, that we can actually do a desk audit. If we know that we require certain documents, ask for those documents to be attached to the child's record so that you only have to simply go through the record and review what was there. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, but I still have to have a piece of paper to actually check off what was there and what was not there, no, you don't. And I'm going to talk to you about that later on in this session, okay? Alrighty, let's go ahead and talk about reaching out and communicating to people. So I went to the child's record. I see portions of the application. I see the eligibility verification form, but what I don't see is copy of the income and copy of the birth certificate, because those are the things we require at my program, okay? So now I have to get in touch with my staff member, all right? Now, I already know that you can email your staff members, because most of us have company emails, and that's how we do it. But you can actually email your staff member through the software. Not only can you email your staff members through the software, but you can email or text your volunteers, and you can email or text your parents through the software as well. So if there's documentation that you notice is missing or is past due, instead of just contacting that staff member, go ahead and reach out to your family members and let them know that you need this information from them. Don't print out any more flyers and send those home. Don't continue to print out long pieces of paper to tell us about upcoming announcements. Instead, reach out to all your families through our feature called Live Message. Live Message can be set up by going to Setup, Module Setup, and then Live Message. In this area, you may notice that ChildPlus will already start you guys off with a couple of sample letters that you can create through Live Message. And the reason I'm not talking about those is because we want to talk about going paperless. So instead of letters, you can also, or in addition to letters, you can also set up email and text messages as well through the Live Message feature. Now, this is one of those features where your system admin will probably give access to other people, because you guys are going to get so excited that you want to create thousands of these, and that one person won't have time to do that for you. And so I want to show you how to access them once they're set up. In order to be able to preview and send a live message, you'll either access it through the Reports tab, And it's a little tricky because it's not under L for live message, it's under S for send, email, text, letter. Send, email, text, letter, and then we'll show you a list of all of the live messages, be it letter, text, or email, set up for your program. I can run or pick which one of those messages or letters I want to send, and ChildPlus will allow me to decide if one person should receive it or if hundreds of people should receive that message. What does that mean? That means I can send my newsletters out through ChildPlus. Okay? That means I can send notifications about upcoming parent meetings from ChildPlus. That means I can send requests to set up home visits and parent-teacher conferences through ChildPlus. No more having to send those papers home, tied to the baby's wrist and stapled to the book bag and cleaning up a lot of them off the floor of the bus. I used to do that. Okay? How can we access those letters individually for the families? Well, if I click on the Services tab, always stationed at the top of your screen is this icon next to the words Send Message. If I click on Send Message, ChildPlus is going to show me a list of all the different messages that have been set up for my program and allow me to send that message directly to the family members for this participant. Okay? Again, if you want to know more about that live message feature, we do have a session for that. I'll offer it several more times this week. Okay? All right, so let's talk about one other feature that we have. When it comes to reaching out to parents pretty quickly, what's the one thing that kind of stirred up all of Head Start? Because they said you have to do this within an hour. 1 hour contact for attendance, right? And everybody immediately started trying to figure out how in the world am I going to reach out to my families that fast? Well, take advantage of this feature and that is going to help you say that you made that contact. Now, here's the tricky part with knowing who we should contact in an hour. It only works if you actually have attendance in the system. And unfortunately, too many of our processes still are bogged down with paper and passing paper from one department to the next in order to get attendance in the system. And I know it's been a few years, but back when I was in Head Start, our teachers entered paper on, or took the attendance on a piece of paper, sent that paper to someone in data entry, who then entered that information into the software. And I know quite a few people still do that, and for good reason. You're telling me I have to do that because my teachers don't really have access to the system, or we don't have devices in every classroom. But I think I have a couple of solutions for you. Okay? For those of us with access to a computer in the classroom and with, don't laugh at me, dedicated planning time, you can have your teachers click on Entry Express and visit our first attendance tab, just plain old attendance. When we click on attendance, you select your location, so I'll select my site and classroom here, and then you choose the day. Here, to help streamline that process for teachers, because we know we don't always get that time, we've even set up defaults. So your attendance is going to default to present, your meal counts are going to default to saying receive those meals, even your arrival and departure times are defaulted. Okay? And so that means as a teacher, I only have to change the codes that do not apply to the kids that day. So the few that were not here, the few that missed a meal, and the few that came in late or left early. Okay? For those of you responsible for things like CA, CFP, I already know it, defaults scare you because you're worried that you won't get accurate reports that way. Don't fear, you can have your system administrator go behind the scenes and turn off one or more of those defaults. Okay? And so that is still an option. In addition to being able to track attendance, we can document absence reasons, and here's where you guys get to say whether or not someone was unexpectedly absent that day, triggering our unexpected absences report, and at the bottom of the screen for each participant, you're even able to make a note to say how you reached out to that family. That just reminds me, I forgot to mention the most important thing about live message. Not only can you quickly send that text or that email to the family from the software, but the system will automatically make a record of that in the family services area for you. So if you needed to show that I am reaching out to my families consistently for absence reasons and other types of discussions that are needed, you can show that by showing them your communication log from the family services area. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Are families able to reply
A very good question. Are families able to reply back to that email or text message? Families are not able to reply directly from the system that sends the text or email, but you can include in your email a reply to email. Have you ever received a notice from a company that just wanted to tell you something or submit an advertisement and it says in the email, do not reply to this email? It's kind of like that, but instead, here's the email to reply to. So we're telling them who to send their reply to. Okay? For text messages, we won't have that reply option, but in your text message, in the body of it, type the email or phone number that you want them to reply to. The cool thing about cell phones nowadays is if you have that phone number or that email in the message, it automatically becomes a link on their phone, right? So they just have to simply click that within the message and they'll be able to send their reply to the right location. Okay? Good question. Sorry I forgot about that. Alrighty, so back to my attendance capabilities. We can keep track of attendance, meal counts, arrival and departure times, as well as notes in this screen. And so again, I did start out by explaining this area is great for those with the luxury of sitting at that computer, right? So what do we have in ChildPlus for those who can't sit at that computer? Well, let's talk about it. I'm going to close out of my attendance tab and open up its neighbor, attendance scanning. In attendance scanning, the screen looks a little bare, and I'm going to show you what you can do to it or with it. But before we do that, let me pull up a report, and it's going to be report 2340. And guess what the name of that report is? Attendance scanning barcodes. I already have my report set up to the perfect class list, so I'm going to click preview in the upper right corner and show you what that looks like. ChildPlus now has the capabilities of taking all of your ChildPlus ID numbers and turning them into barcodes. You guys can take a scanner and hook it up to your computer, print this out and give it to a teacher and just have them scan the children in and out for that day. You're able to also use that scanning for meal counts as well to get a true point of service count that goes directly into the software. Okay? Not only do we have what we call a list view for these barcodes, but we have the ability to create ID cards as well. So let me expand that a little bit so you can see that better. Each ID card is capable of showing your agency's logo, the child's name, and allergies in bright red print, as well as who the child can be released to, names of the parent and guardians, as well as a picture of that baby. So you can print these out, make those nice little ID cards, have them sitting somewhere in the classroom, or issue them out to your families. Have your families come in each day and scan their child in and out, okay? Now, yes, that means you'd have to purchase a scanner. No, it's not a very big expense. Now, I get it. If you're a large agency with a lot of classroom, every dollar adds up. But you can purchase scanners for those classrooms from as little as $25 all the way up to several hundred. And I promise you the $25 scanners work great, okay? Now, what if I don't want to purchase scanners? What if I want to use this feature today and I just didn't plan for that in my budget? That's okay too. Because what did I just tell you those barcodes represent? ChildPlus IDs. So you can actually type in your ID directly into the system. And I'm going to do that with one of my students. And when I hit enter on my keyboard, it was that simple. She's checked in. You could set up a kiosk or a computer at the front of your program or wherever your entry points are with ChildPlus on it. And that particular login on that computer only has access to this screen, and allow your parents upon arrival and departure to click the check-in or check-out button and enter their child's name or scan that card. Now you don't have to take time away from the classroom to go ahead and document who's here and who's not here that day. Okay? What do we think about that? Yes, ma'am.
When you use the scanner option, does the scanner have to be attached to a computer? Or can the computer be in the back of the office of that classroom and you can use the scanner up front by the
That is a very good question. So the question says, does the computer have to be attached to the scanner? Yes. That is why they have some of those more expensive scanners that are USB or wireless. So you basically connect like a little device to your computer, and it allows you to go so many feet away from the computer and still be able to take attendance. You will pay a little bit more for those devices though, okay? All right, so that's another problem though. If I can't dedicate time to a computer, or I don't really have the devices connected right there at the computer, what other option do I have for taking attendance that allows me to be a little bit more flexible and a little bit more remote? How many of you are using the attendance app or tried it or played around with it? Great, quite a few people in the room today are actually exploring the options with the attendance app. The attendance app, I'm going to show you a video in a moment of it, but the attendance app, you guys, is basically a digital or an app version of the first screen I showed you. It actually allows you, your teachers, to go through and mark every student present or absent, document their meals, and of course the system captures their arrival and departure times. There are even note fields in there so that you can document a note for maybe when you reached out to that family to find out why that person wasn't in attendance that day. But you know what I really like about the app? It even includes a parents page to allow them to sign their child in and out for those programs that are legally bound to collect signatures from parents, okay? I think that's a really cool feature, and if you guys put that app on a company-issued cell phone or whatever rules you have related to cell phone usage, that means you can even collect signatures and attendance from the bus. Okay, so let's take a short look at my quick video about how that app works, and it moves just a little fast, and I'll try to narrate that for you, okay? The first thing you're going to see me do is pick my classroom, and it already knows the date, so I'm going to say, yes, I want to open this classroom. The next thing I'm going to do is to pick my parents page where it has the names, and it says check in, and allow that parent to sign their child in. Once that signature is saved, ChildPlus is going to mark that child checked in, and I can see that. And then I'm going to go to the teacher's page, which is a little bit different, where I can, in addition to seeing the attendance codes, but I'm going to be able to document absence reasons. So this next screen is going to take me right to the absence reasons so we don't forget about it. Once I'm done here, I can view the contacts for this child, which is very helpful because if you're using it on the phone, it will even give you the option to go ahead and call and text that parent to reach out to them. And then I can leave that screen and make a note and explain what I was told or my attempts to get in touch with that parent to document why that student was out that day. All of this available on the ChildPlus Attendance app, okay? All right, so that was my short video for that, and what I'll do for you, if those of you want to see that again at the end of the session, I'll have it available for you. But let's go back into ChildPlus. Okay, so we talked about 3 different options for tracking attendance, and often, you guys, when I'm talking about multiple options, whether it be in-person applications or online applications, using Entry Express plain old attendance on my desktop, attendance scanning, or mobile app, people assume it has to be one or the other. It does not. Use what works best for your classroom and in each environment. You do not have to turn on attendance app and then that doesn't exclude you or enable you from being able to use the other methods in ChildPlus, okay? Because what works for one classroom or one site may not work for all right? So let's talk about some other going paperless items in our system. Did you know that you can even take attendance for your staff members, okay? Now, I know it's 2018, so a lot of us, I heard some grumbles about that. Does that mean you guys don't want to do staff attendance? It's 2018, and a lot of us actually have some type of system already where we punch in or swipe in. I thought it would be cool to mention in this class because a lot of times I still see those big boards where we slide our names in and out for the day so that you know who's in the office. And so I just wanted to show you what your options were really quickly for being able to document staff members' attendance as well. The first thing we're going to take a look at is our Management tab, and underneath that we'll click on Personnel, choose a staff member, and migrate on over here to Timeclock, okay? Now, Personnel usually screams to me Security, which says I probably won't have anybody with access to go in here. But please remember, you can customize security. You can tell the system that only that person should have access to his or her record, meaning we have access to our own record. And then you can even say that I only have access to the Timeclock tab when I'm accessing my record. So that way you don't have to worry about them messing with any other data in this area. Okay? Now, the Timeclock tab is going to allow us to manually enter in times each day in and out. And yes, it will collect multiple times in and out. And it will even allow you to add hours. So if you don't want to be specific about your times in and out and you just want to say, I spent so many hours working on this, or, because I like using these for home visits, so many hours away from the site on that visit as well. Okay? In addition to being able to access your time clock through personnel, we also have a feature for you that says check me in and check me out. And you can access that feature by clicking on the gear menu way over in the upper right corner of your screen. So when I click on that gear menu, I get many options, but the first one is my option to check me in, check me out. Personally, I think this is the most secure way for staff attendance if you really are collecting attendance for payroll, because it recognizes the name of the person who's logged in. So I don't have a choice of whose attendance I'm taking right now. It's going to say that name, and when I click check in, it'll say that person has checked in and even show you the time. If I go back out, I can check that person out. It's going to show that name and that time again. And if you want to see a list of all the times checked in and checked out, you click on that gear menu and go right under it to click on My Timesheet. My Timesheet is a great printout of all the times someone has used the check in and check out feature, and it does not allow you to edit those in and out times from this screen. You can add hours, but in order to edit those times, you have to have access to the Personnel tab. Okay? So several ways to not only collect participant attendance, but staff attendance electronically as well. All right? Let's move into monitoring, okay? Let's talk about some fun ways to review our data electronically. There are a lot of programs that will tell me that they like ChildPlus reports, but they still keep separate spreadsheets. They still create what we used to call those tickler systems and other types of files so that they can enter in data manually, because they feel like it allows them to be able to access that information a lot quicker than having to go and run a report and read and analyze that report. Meaning they usually want to get a quick way or something there that tells me this child needs a screening today, or this person is missing this information. But don't create spreadsheets for that. Instead, you guys take advantage of the to-do list. I'm going to click on the to-do list labeled Hearing and Vision Screenings. And in the to-do list, before I click all through that, I want to talk to you about it a moment, because here I'm able to tell ChildPlus to show me kids based on expiration dates, based on due dates, based on statuses, okay? So I can tell the system, show me, for an example, any participant that's due for a 45-day screening. Oh, it even shows you people based on schedule dates. I can say, show me participants because I've scheduled to meet with their families in so many weeks and follow up on those referrals that I gave, okay? When you create your to-do list and tell the system exactly what you want to see, it will show you what we call a calendar view, or you can go to the bottom of the screen and select to see it in a list view. What's exciting for me about this feature is that's my quick and ready report without having to print out and read through anything, because ChildPlus is constantly reminding me that these people are in need of some type of follow-up or documentation. You can share this to-do list with staff members a variety of ways as well. Not only can you set up ChildPlus to-do lists and say, hey, I want other users to be able to see my same screen, but you can actually set up automatic emails with this feature. You can tell the system to email yourself or email other people and basically say, hey, this stuff is due pretty soon. These kids need your attention right now. You can set up emails daily, weekly, monthly, and even twice a month, okay? Maybe this is a one-time thing and I don't want to really set up those automatic emails, but I still want them to see what I see on my screen. The third option for sharing this information is by checking the appropriate box, going to the bottom screen, and click Copy the Records to Clipboard. So then you can paste that information in an email. It even comes with your opening sentence that says, hey, there may be some things that here are some things that you may be interested in, okay? So the to-do list is a great way to be reminded of things that you need to update in the system, as well as kind of showing you where some attention is needed. The dashboard is another great feature that can be shared with other users throughout the program once you set it up via email or by telling the system you want them to see your screen as well. But what I like about the dashboard is not only does it give me numerical information in both graph and grid form, but the dashboard, unlike any other feature in ChildPlus, helps me to analyze my program performance. Because in addition to being able to say, show me a list of participants who have not yet met their requirements, did you guys know that there are indicators in here that say, show me if staff is actually following up within a timely manner in areas such as health, family services, and even attendance. There are even indicators in the attendance that say, show me if attendance improved once we began following up. Okay, so with this one feature, without having to print out any paper, I'm able to monitor both the children and the families we serve, as well as program performance. Okay, what other monitoring options do we have for you in the system? Somebody talked to me about self-assessment. How many of us just love that process? Okay, I didn't like the self-assessment process because it really did contain a lot of paper and a lot of meetings. Why do we always have so many meetings to go out and monitor for self-assessment? There was a meeting to determine the teams. There was a meeting to determine the questions and the areas. There was a meeting to create or give out the checklist. There was a meeting to actually go monitor. And we even ended up with a big meeting to look at all of our results. And every single one of those included tons of paper. What I find is that not a lot of people are using our internal monitoring feature. We heard about it, we think we know what it has to offer us, but we don't realize how it fits in. You guys are required to monitor on a regular basis, and that is your self-assessment. Not just one day, not just one time a year, but you monitor all year long. Are we monitoring playgrounds for safety? Are we monitoring classrooms for teacher performance or just the environment? Are we monitoring vehicles? Are we monitoring first aid kits to make sure we have what we need? Every single one of those things I've mentioned and more can be created in here as a checklist using this feature, and you guys can walk around with your laptop, tablet, or device that you have ChildPlus on and actually complete that checklist while you're there in that environment. Not only can you complete that checklist right then and there, and I'm going to click on one to show you what it looks like, and I'll be able to tell ChildPlus the day and the time that I went out, but when I go here and I get ready to enter in all my results, if there is an area of non-compliance, let's change that to 1, then ChildPlus even has an option for me to create a corrective action plan. So we can document what we're going to do to address the non-compliance or the issue, whether it means ordering more supplies or hiring more staff or just introducing some new training, okay? I see the question. We'll get to that in 1 second. And then for my corrective, or after that is all done, we can even set up follow-up monitoring. And my favorite piece of this is the ability to attach documents. Attach your purchase order, attach your receipts, attach anything that helped you to complete that monitoring, as well as address any findings that came about through that monitoring, so that not only the monitoring itself is completely electronic, but you have an electronic copy of all of your supporting documentation as well. Question in the back? So the question is, can the checklist be done without internet connection? You have to have internet connection in order to use ChildPlus, and they're embedded in the ChildPlus, which means you will have to have Wi-Fi to be able to do that, okay? All right? Any other questions for me about that? Set up those checklists, you guys, so that you can go out and perform your monitorings electronically. All right, let's take a look at what I call the biggest and bestest electronic feature of them all. But before we do, let's recap. I've already talked about how you can collect your family data. You guys already know as current ChildPlus users, and even maybe some potential users streaming, that ChildPlus allows you to keep up with dates to track things like screenings, exams, and family goals. We already know the software allows us to keep track of all of our notes. In this session, we talked about a variety of options for us for tracking attendance features and even doing some desk-level audits by looking at attachments, looking at features like to-do lists and the dashboard. But what I haven't addressed yet is my friend in the back who said, I require a special form and we have to collect a signature on that form. What I have not addressed yet are your mini consent forms. We have consent for everything in Head Start, right? What I have not addressed yet are all your other forms that you use, the things that help make that application process a 45-minute process. All of that can be taken care of with one feature, Module Designer. Module Designer allows you to design your own module. What in the world is a module? That's your tab. All these little tabs that you're clicking on inside of our system, we refer to them as modules. You guys can create your own tab that will appear in any of these service areas, or tabs that can appear in the management area and help you collect data based on your agency's needs. I don't know if you guys really understand what that means. You can create your own forms library right in the software. Every single piece of paper that you're using throughout the year, home visit forms, parent-teacher conference forms, health history, nutrition assessment, consent forms, a form to document this meeting for rights related to IDA services. Anything that you're putting on a piece of paper right now that you didn't think you could keep track of in ChildPlus, first decide if it's just a simple addition of an agency-specific field, and if it's more complex than being able to put it in one field, use Module Designer to create that form directly in the system. It's going to look like this, where it'll be a tab that you can click on, and like any of our other tabs, it'll eventually list for you a lot of your data in order by dates. But for the data entry purposes, if I click on it, it's going to give me all of my fields and look much like all of my other areas in the system. And if it's a field that you can think of, we probably have it for you. Checkboxes, numeric fields, both with and without decimals, note fields, custom drop-down choices, and some of the fields, not a lot of them, but some of the fields even pull from other areas in the system. Okay? You can create your own custom reports based on those tabs that you create in the system. One report or hundreds of reports. Okay? Alrighty, now what about being able to capture signatures? Because I still haven't said that, right? Well, electronic signature capture is an option for those custom forms. So you build the form into the system and you tell ChildPlus what signature you need. And for those of us with multiple layers for signatures, you can actually put on as many signature fields as you want to. So you can label them Family Services, the Family Services Manager, the Director, and we all have a place to sign that form. Okay? Now, as much as I love creating my own tab, sometimes there isn't really a need for a tab, or sometimes I want to create my own fields in ChildPlus, but take advantage of the existing features, like being able to say that this is a requirement and is due within so many days. For an example, my nutrition assessment. I have specific things that I want to ask for about formula and schedule and feeding and substitutions, and ChildPlus just doesn't give me that in health. So I create my own set of fields using Module Designer, but instead of creating 1,000 tabs in Module Designer, look what we did, you guys. We actually attached that to a nutrition assessment event in the software. I'm going to click on my nutrition assessment. Now, before I click on it, let me explain, or once I click on it, let me explain what I've done. I told ChildPlus I don't want to see all of the fields that the software offers, so I've turned them off for this nutrition assessment, which is why I have that large blank space. I only want to see the event field, an expiration field, and a status field. Why recreate fields if they already exist, right? So I'm going to keep those. And don't worry, we're working on, in the near future, being able to remove that blank space for those of us that don't want to scroll past it, okay? But here's the good stuff. Instead of all the fields that came with the system and me not being able to track my data the way I want to see it, I was able to create my own list of fields and attach it to that event. But what does that really mean? That means that I can tell the system that my special created field or event is due within so many days of entry or enrollment. That means that I can use the reports I already love and use on a regular basis to monitor if someone has entered that information into the system. Okay? So what I hear is I don't have a lot of excuses to hang on to all my pieces of paper at the program. Do you guys hear that too? Okay, I don't hear a yes. Yes. All right. So we talked about being able to collect your family information electronically, being able to monitor that information electronically using things like to-do lists and dashboard. Okay? I want you to be able to sit at your desk and use things like Module Designer to create checklists, use attachments to see the documents that you wanted to go monitor from that file, and check off what you see and what you don't see. We talked about the ability to use live message to communicate both to your parents and your staff, as well as volunteers, to say what information is still needed for your system, and we don't have to print out one piece of paper for any of that, okay? I hope you guys heard a lot of useful tips to help you go paperless, and I thank you for your time. Thank you.